The side panels made out of glass are very good for exposing the inside of the PC, but airflow is totally blocked with glass. Only the backside can give some airflow to move through the PC housing. The original PC case design has a front plate completely made of glass and blocks every airflow. The best option is to remove the glass and replace it with some good meshed front. The airflow is optimized to suck in here the air. The blower of the CPU cooler is also blowing in this direction, and these three fans are pulling the air from the PC inside to the outside, so always a flow of fresh air goes in this direction to optimize the cooling of the heat generating components like the GPU and the CPU. If you have some powerful CPU and GPU inside your housing, a good idea is to choose a bigger case, but there are some downsides. There is a nice intake on the rear and a nice intake on the top, where you can mount even small or big fans, so that you have a good intake of fresh air to cool your CPU and your GPU. But there is a little mistake on the front. We have a nice mesh, also with an air dust filter and 3 fans RGB, or if you like to, even bigger fans can be added. But again, if all is installed correctly, you have a front with a massive glass panel. Only some small outtakes are here to release the hot air from the inside of the case to the outside. How can we fix the airflow in the front panel? Easy, you just remove the front cover, then you use some tool to remove the double-sided duct tape to release the glass panel, like this, and replace it easily with a 3D printed grill, which allows a lot of more airflow to move through the front panel instead of just the side outtakes, which are very limited here and here. And also the aesthetics improve a little bit, in my opinion. And here you can attach the original front panel with a lot of airflow instead of a glass panel. This is the difference. At the moment we took the easy way, just removing a glass panel and replacing it with a 3D printed mesh panel is the easiest way. But if we have a different case, where are the other challenges? In case you want a compact solution for your PC, there are also tiny housings for your PC components, but with a lot of hurdles to get a good cooling. For example, only a small intake fan on the back side, an intake with a dust filter with no screw holes for installing a fan, and of course the most challenging part is the front panel, completely covered all sides here and there, and only a little outtake here on the bottom side, which blocks almost every airflow and also moves the hot air on the downside, which will be the intake for the power supply. So preheated air from the inside to supply fresh air to the power supply of the housing. This is obviously not a good choice for power hungry components. So let's focus on the front panel, because there is the main challenge. For aesthetics, RGB was more important than proper cooling. So best solution is remove the front panel, which is easy to do because there are some snaps here which keeps the panel on the front of the housing. This reveals that there are solutions for PCB cooling proper if the panel is not used. Here are two mounts for standard 120mm fans, but the position is not optimal because the air will be blocked by some metal parts here, and here are some unused spaces for fan exhaust. There was one not very obvious option, because the size of the front is also suitable for 140mm fans. They fit perfectly in this cavity of the front panel, but there are no obvious mounting options. Maybe you can drill some holes, but the mounting will not be optimal because the fan will be very close to this metal sheet. So there will be some noise and some air blocking possible. Let's have a closer look to this housing and the options we have to create a new panel. First of all, the original panel also covers the bottom of the PCB case, which is not necessary, only for aesthetics. So if we remove the panel, we can see here several mounting options for the panel and some rivets which will have some trouble to get flush on the surface of the housing. Let's inspect the options for the front fans. The obvious method would be to use 120mm fans, because the fixture for mounting them is already available. But for better cooling, it might be also useful to have some options for bigger fans, because the space is here. So is there an option to use 140mm fans instead, to improve even the airflow with a better front panel? And it should fit perfectly. Let's keep in mind that we also have the user buttons and some USB ports here, which we will also reuse. And we have to keep this opening free for the buttons and the USB ports. But there's plenty space with two big size fans for this option. Creating a new front panel for PC housing gives us not only the challenge to remove the glass and replace it with plastics. There's another glass panel which gives us some challenge, and this is the side of the printer bed of the printer. This doesn't fit on the glass panel of the PCB of the 3D printer. So you have to split your new front cover in several pieces, so you can use a small 3D printer for even big front panels. So let's see if we can fit this front panel on this printer bed. The first attempt is also to make it modular, to have more options. Let's start with the base part. Then we have the part for the fans, which can be adapted to 120mm or it can be adapted to 140mm. Because the fan is now attached to the front panel and not to the housing, there is the opportunity to get more airflow from this side, and we want it to exhaust. So sucking here the air with a gap to the housing will have some good influence to the airflow in the result. The modular attempt makes it easy to stack up the housing and if the parts are created correctly, it's just plug and play like a puzzle. We also can turn the disadvantage of a too small printing bed to an advantage, because if the parts are modular, we can also design some options which are much easier to create if you can focus on different tasks for different print results. So there are some features missing, like in the front panel. So we create a different front panel with another option fitting to our needs. And there is a complete front panel made with a simple 3D printer with a much better airflow, with more options for fans and with a more fancy looking front side for USB and power and reset buttons. So let's see how it looks like if we remove the front panel from the housing manufacturer with our 3D printed model. Here the rivets can move into these gaps, which are made for a lighter printing model and also for better mounting options. Also the middle sections are not symmetrical because the holes are not even distributed on the front. So I made one piece which fits on either position. So while 3D printing, I don't have to think about which part I need. They always fit because they are dual use for this part. And it fits perfectly. The rivets are hidden inside the holes. The mounting options are fitting perfectly. And also the aesthetics are very good, and the feeds are free, and the airflow here for the power supply is also free. There is also one downside, because the aesthetics of the white plastic and the black color of the PC case is not fitting. You can choose different materials to print your parts and choose the color with this, but there is one more obvious option, because always keeping every color of 3D material at your 3D printing site is a little mess. A little bit spray paint can also do the trick, and you only have to have one size of one color of material for your 3D printer, and the spray paint gives you the same aesthetics as you would change always the 3D printing material. For proper mounting, a good fit is important, so that you don't have to use force to put the pieces together. But some super glue will help to attach the several parts, that you have one sturdy part for your front panel. So the next step will be to glue all these parts together to get to the final front panel. Here we are with the final result of the new front bezel for the PCB case. Let's have a closer look. The 140mm fans are screwed to the front panel, and for the airflow from the case innen to the outside. Also the power button, the reset button and the USB ports are fastened. The glued together front panel is colored brown to match better to the black housing. Now it's time to fasten the screws to fix the front panel to the PC housing. Here we are. The front panel is finally assembled. The parts are glued together. The front panel is matching with a dark brown color to the PC case, and the 140mm fans are attached to the back side of the panel. You can see this looks more fancy than the original one. There are also two USB 3 ports instead of only one, and one USB 2.0 port. And when we have a look inside, we can see that the whole front is covered now with the fans, and all the air here taken out is here sucked in on the top, on the side, and the covers are left open to also improve the airflow. And with the PWM control of the mainboard, these fans are very silent, nearly impossible to listen to hear them. So let's finish it and close the cover. And we have a very compact build with excellent airflow for a very low price. This Aerocool Cylon Mini RGB only costs about 40 euros, and the material costs for the front panel is just the material for 3D printing and some buttons. You can use often the USB ports from slot ports which are used for the front bezel, which are no longer useful because the most panels don't have any front I/O shield openings anymore. If you like what you see, for all three housings you can download the files for 3D printed by yourself. I like it very much.